We are going to go ahead and call the House Transportation Committee to order. Donna, can I please get roll call?
Representative Banks,
Here.
Representative Geringer,
Here.
Representative Larson,
Excused.
Representative McCann. Here. Representative Nicholas,
Absent.
Representative Posey, Representative Tarver,
Here.
Representative Wiley,
Here.
and Chairman Brown.
Here. Thank you. All right, committee, we are pulling over our last bill, or our bill from last meeting. The last bill that we have to cover up there is the license plate issuance. We did hear from all of our county clerks. However, there was some concerns. I did ask Representative Wiley to potentially address some of those with any potential amendments as we move forward. We did not, however, go for any public comment, I don't believe, so I will open up this. We'll start out now. We're on House Bill 237. Is there anybody in the public who would like to testify on House Bill 237? All right, seeing none, we will pull the bill. You want to testify? Sure, come on up. Always want to hear from the chiefs of police, especially when it involves removing the potential of the front license plate. I would know nothing about running that bill 8 years ago.
Mr. Chairman, my name is Alan Thompson, Executive Director of WASCOP, and I apologize for bouncing in and out. I have a bill across the hall. I would just like to point out on, looks like we're on page 2. Basically the option between 2 license plates or 1 license plate. I would like to assert that WASCOP's stance is that there's 2 purposes for a license plate, and that's the collection of tax and the use of for law enforcement purposes. And it's not just for the confirmation that taxes and registration have been paid, but also for identification in crimes, and it's very helpful to have the front license plate. The wording of the bill, we don't have recommendation for an amendment at this time, but we do have to ask the committee to consider language that would encourage that second plate, because if people were given the choice to have 1 plate or 2, I think we would see a drastic drop in 2 license plates. The impact that we've seen when the bill was adjusted a few years ago to not require a license plate on the front of a vehicle where a bracket didn't already exist hasn't severely impacted our ability to do our job, but I feel like a notification to everyone that they have a choice between 1 and 2 may have that impact. And I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have any, sir.
Thank you, Alan. Committee, any questions for WASCOP? Seeing none. Thank you very much. We'll let you hop back across the hall, Alan. Thanks. All right. Any further public testimony? Seeing nobody rushing to the mics, we'll go ahead and close public testimony. Move the bill back up to the dais. Committee, we have heard the bill. What is your pleasure?
Move the bill.
Moved by Larson, seconded by Tarver. Committee, I'm going to go ahead and open this up. Representative Wiley, did you have any amendments that you'd like to bring forward to address any of the concerns that we did here, or do you have any discussion on those?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't think it's appropriate right now to bring amendments. I think a lot of the concerns were in the language, but the clerks are still going to be able to receive these payments for the registrations and stuff. They're still going to be able to give out cowboy courtesy if they need to go help the folks put a plate on in the parking lot, or talk them through how to use, the process to get their stuff delivered to their door. And I think moving forward, it's just a little bit of growing pains, and we're going to be okay.
Okay, thank you, Representative Wiley. Committee, is there any discussion? Yes. Representative Banks, please.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. So I'm going to be a no vote on this bill. I just want to explain why. My county treasurer reached out and has significant concerns about this, and the potential to lose positions, the potential that everything is now going to be down at the state, and the efficiencies of being able to take care of this, where they were doing a good job at the county, and now they fear that it's going to be less efficient at the state. And I'm going to respect the concerns that she has, and I'll be a no vote. Thank you.
Okay. Yep. We let you talk, but I'll bring you back down. Okay. Representative Tarver, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So these concerns that are being brought forward, they're valid concerns, but I do believe that there's a way to move forward on this, and it is going to increase our efficiency. If they want to go down and do it traditionally, they can still go down there. They can get their paper ballot. If they get pulled over, they can show them the registration. Nothing will change there. And the beauty of this is they will not have to go and get new license plates if they do not want to. So the efficiency for our ranchers or whatever, they don't have to go to town. They don't have to go get new plates. If they like their plates, by all means, keep them. If they want different plates, they would be able to get those plates. They won't be able to walk in and walk out with them, but they can wait a few weeks and they'll have their plates. So I'm gonna be a yes vote. I would at least like this discussion to get to the floor.
Okay. Anybody over here? Nobody? Representative Wiley, please.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, just to touch on the good representative from up by the.
You can
big
refer
ones.
to him in committee.
From Representative Banks.
There we go.
In no way in any of the language within this bill is telling the treasurers how to run their departments or do their budgets. We're not affecting that at all. We're leaving home control alone.
Okay. Representative Posey? Good, okay. Committee, anything further? Seeing none. Calling for the question. Donna, would you please mind taking roll on House Bill 237 as amended? Actually, there's no amendments on this. We're just going to do House Bill 237, please.
Okay. Representative Banks?
No.
Representative Geringer?
Aye.
Representative Larson? Representative McCann? Representative Nicholas? Representative Posey? Representative Tarver? Representative Wiley? And Chairman Brown? We have 7 aye and 2 no, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Donna. Committee, that puts us up to House Bill 225, and with that, that is my little bill here. So I'm going to turn the chairmanship over to Vice Chairman Tarver, and I will go take the hot seat. Chairman Tarver.
Representative Brown, would you like to present House Bill 225?
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. Committee, what you will have in front of you, what I would like to do is, this is a pretty simple bill. And instead of wasting a whole bunch of time on my side of things, I will tell you there are some interested parties, and this committee is going to be put in kind of a sticky situation of handling a little bit of a dispute here in this local capital city, but it also has to do with some other localities as well. So I was brought this concern from numerous people, not just lobbyists. I will say a lot of lobbyists have come up to me and supported this discussion, but also people who have come down to actually come watch any of the discussion that we're having out on the floor or anything like that during the day. They have a hard time finding parking. And so one of the things that has been concerning over this particular year and last year is the parking direction around the Capitol has been an issue, and whether or not you have to be out there within 2 hours or you start getting your ticket. Well, you guys saw and still see pretty much every single day, we're going to be in session for hours upon hours, and it's pretty rare. And I can actually tell you that I even know 2 particular legislators that have been ticketed this year from having to park in this 2-hour parking. And you're going to hear some conversation from the mayor of this good city here. And I think they've got some valid points. I think there's some concerns about the unused parking spaces that we have by the state of Wyoming, and whether or not they should allow those to be open to public access during legislative sessions, those types of things. So I'll let him discuss those, but what I'll do, Mr. Vice Chairman, is I'll just walk through the bill very quickly. And then what I would like to suggest is take the majority of this meeting's time to hear out the concerns, weigh through the discussion, and find out whether or not this committee has any interest in moving this forward. I do think it's a good bill. I do think it's forcing a discussion that is long overdue. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll walk through the bill very briefly. It's a very small bill. What you'll notice is that on page 1, we start out with no ordinance or regulation, basically saying that nobody has the ability within the state to enact a parking restriction And you'll see Romanet 1 says within the boundaries of the Capitol complex is defined by, and we actually already have those Capitol complex boundaries. While the legislature or any of its committees are actively meeting at the Capitol for official purposes. So I think that's a really important distinction. When we're here in session and/or if we're having a committee meeting, finding parking can be a struggle for many, right? And I think we're not talking about outside of session. We don't want to have to worry about that at all during session. And then what you'll also see, and I have an amendment here that I do believe would be helpful to the discussion as well, but it says within 1/2 mile of the location of the official meetings of the legislature. This was kind of an all-encompassing, and what I want to give you guys the heads up on this was there was also another situation in another community, and I'll just say the northern part of the state, where legislator was actually ticketed for parking outside of their committee meeting, and it was the cop was basically waiting there at the 2-hour mark to write the ticket. And it was right outside of a community event center or a community hall, if you will. And so that is why we included the language. It's not just about Cheyenne, where we do have the issue right now is here in Cheyenne. However, it is an issue that we need to address everywhere, that if we're going to have meetings for our public to attend, we need to make sure we have parking where they're not going to be ticketed and they're not going to be worried about whether or not they're going to be heard in time if they have to go out and move their car every 2 hours or something like that. So that's why this bill was brought, Mr. Vice Chairman. And then what I will say beyond that is if I can find my amendment here, there's 2 amendments that I have. And if I can get them to open up here, my apologies. So I think one of the things that we can do is we can change the 1/2 mile down to a 1/4 mile. I don't think we need to go out a 1/2 mile. That's a pretty wide radius. However, I will say, I did see parking enforcement being done about 3.5, almost 4 blocks away yesterday as I was coming into the Capitol from where I work. It's about a 4.5 block adjustment. The difference is that's also, it's a different area of the city and they are regulated by a different portion of the parking. So it was not Capitol complex parking. That's why we have defined what we have in here. So we could say 1/4. And then the other thing that we could do in this is except at locations where free parking lot or parking structure is available to the public within 1/4 mile of the location. And I put that in there to say, hey, look, if we have a public access parking structure, one of the areas that I think is important to think about is we have a lot of meetings at the Thyra Thompson office building. We're not going to sit there and say we're going to put a 1/4 mile parking perimeter around there and enforce that when we have a parking lot that is more than adequate to house these areas. So if the cities or the towns or the municipalities want to enforce a parking area or parking restriction where there is a parking lot, I think that would work. The other thing we could do is say, the provisions of this section shall not apply to locations of official meetings of the state legislature, including any of its committees, if a free parking lot or parking structure is available to the public within 1/4 mile of the meeting location. And I think what we'll hear during this conversation is more so about the parking structure that you find to the west of this building. You have the state parking garage, and I believe you'll have some pictures up there. I know I had a couple of pictures there of what that looks like right now, and also what we refer to as the St. Mary's parking lot. That parking lot has a lot of open space a lot of times as well. And so the conversation is, should the state open that up and allow public parking on that? And I think that's a valid discussion for us to have as a committee. So, Mr. Vice Chairman, that is the bill in its entirety and my potential amendments, if the committee would be so interested in following those, and I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Larson.
Thank you. So if the public is parking over in the parking garage to the west of here, how do they know that they're not here for state purpose? I mean, I always assumed that the public could park there. Frankly was surprised, but so what you're telling me is they're not, one, then how do they know if they're not?
There are parking, Mr. Chairman.
Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Larson. They are actually issued parking permits, and they are also registered with their license plates. And so you'll actually find the Division O police and also the SecOps people will actually enforce that. Whether or not that's heavily enforced is a discussion and a question for A&I. But I do believe they're here in the room to have that discussion as well.
Mr. Garinger.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Representative Brown, Chairman Brown, who are those spots reserved for at the moment? The parking structure and the St. Mary's lot, who are those reserved for at the moment?
Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Garinger, they are reserved for state employees. So you have the Hirschler East, Hirschler West, and you have a couple thousand employees total between those two buildings. I will say that there's also been discussion that employees like to park on the streets. There's also paid parking. The church across the street on 26th Street has a paid parking lot because it's closer to a lot of those, and some state employees have actually chosen to pay for that parking because it's a closer walk for a lot of them. And you'll see a lot of employees getting out every 2 hours and going and moving their vehicles so they don't get charged. But the intent behind those two parking areas was for state employees.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Looks like there's no more questions. Do we have any state agencies that would like to testify on this?
So, Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
before we take public testimony, I'm wondering, because there was a question, do we want to proceed with this bill at all or not? I think we ought to address that question before we spend another half hour on the bill. Because frankly, sorry,
Thank you.
frankly, Mr. Vice Chair, this bill doesn't make any sense to me. And I'm curious if anyone else has that same feeling with it on whether or not we want to proceed or not. And so I would ask just if we could get a show of hands, who wants to work this bill?
Show of hands, who wants to work
Alright.
the bill?
All right, okay, that's just what I wanted to know.
All right, looks like we're working the bill. So let's go back to public testimony. Is there anyone that would like to testify in the room? And we've got a contender. Thank you, sir. Please give us your name and start in.
I was trying to give him a free lunch.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I'm Mayor Patrick Collins from the city of Cheyenne. I do understand that the topic of parking around the Capitol has been a hot topic for a while now. The city has a 2-hour parking limit for many areas around the Capitol complex, and I know it's frustrated folks who come to the Capitol to do business in this building. Legislators and lobbyists have been especially affected as their days in the Capitol are long. As a person I consider a mentor gave me some advice when it comes to changing a rule. And that is, General Rand told me, you have to understand that good people made the rules, the current rules, for good reasons, and you need to understand those reasons before you consider making the change. For years, merchants and customers have complained about the lack of available parking in our downtown area. Employees parking on the street took up the available parking, making it hard for customers to find a place to park. It hurt business and their ability to survive. We even have newspaper articles from 100 years ago complaining about no parking in Cheyenne. The governing body has experimented with different ways of getting cars to turn over, making the business environment better for our downtown business owners. Installing a 2-hour parking limits has been the compromise that helped keep open parking for downtown visitors and kept many customers from taking up those spaces. We don't do this to make money from tickets. In fact, we spend more money on our parking division than we get in fines and fees. But we do it to make sure downtown is vibrant. When we looked at the area around the Capitol, we found we have the Capitol, the State Museum, we have the newly renovated Capitol building, and we have a bunch of state offices. Without limiting parking, state employees will take all the parking spaces, and there will be no place for visitors to the Capitol, the museum, or those wanting to do business with the state. We prioritized tourists and your constituents wanting to come visit you at the Capitol over employees and others that want to have a long-term parking on the street. We wanted people to have access, convenient access to the people's house. This bill included a half-mile radius around the Capitol where parking limits could not be enforced. That would include our critical areas to the north of the Hirschler building. It's a residential area, and we have a special permit that you have to have in order to park there because people would come home, there's no place to park in front of their homes. And so you have to have a special parking sticker to be there. It would nullify that. It also would include the critical business areas in our downtown where the 2-hour parking limit keeps cars turning over and businesses with the ability to have customers. This would be so disruptive to our economy and really hurt our businesses this time of year. So if you look at the packet that I gave you guys a little bit ago, this one here, you'll see that the state of Wyoming has paid to build parking infrastructure that has more than enough capacity to solve this problem. We have the surface parking lot immediately to the east of the Capitol. As the good chairman said, is the St. Mary's lot. We have the multi-story parking structure just west of the Capitol. And we have the surface lot that used to be the Safeway just 1 block from the Capitol. My chief of staff and I have been surveying those 3 lots and found that they have significantly more capacity than needed to solve this problem. On Monday, the Safeway lot, which has 153 parking spaces, had 9 vehicles parked in it. The parking garage had 163 open spaces. This is at 10 o'clock in the morning. I think probably one of the busier times for this group. And the St. Mary's lot had 12 open spaces. That's the smallest amount that I've seen in all of my time going around. More than 300 spaces, long-term spaces for folks who need to park all day during the session. I believe the solution is for the state to choose to open these parking lots with so much excess parking capacity so the folks during the session and other times the legislature is busy, rather than disrupting the parking program that keeps our parking available to visitors and those who want to do business at state offices. I have spoken to the governor's office and asked them to help make that happen. But another way forward might be for this committee to direct that one or more of those lots be made available to the public. Just on another side note, we just passed recently a new ordinance that we still have 2-hour parking, but if you use an app on your phone, you can actually buy more time after that. We're in the process of ordering the signs and creating those divisions. So if somebody wanted to park longer than 2 hours because they wanted to be here, and we've all had that experience when you go out of town, you can buy extra time in order to be able to stay there longer. And so that will happen, I think, maybe sometime this midsummer. We're just in the process of engaging that. So it would also help people who need to be here just a little bit longer. But Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I appreciate the situation you find yourself in. I'm sure you're very tired of hearing about parking. I hope we've provided you a solution that is better than writing a law that circumvents the local government's authority over their local roads. And I'd be here to answer any questions if you have them.
Thank you, Mr. Collins. Is there any questions? Representative Larson.
Mayor, we're glad you're here. You're always very accommodating to us. Thank you.
Thank you.
You caught my interest when you said on the street north of the Herschler building that you provide the homeowners with a sticker. So do they own that portion of the public street?
Mr. Chairman, through you, no, sir, they do not.
But yet you're giving them preference to use the public street over the public as a whole?
Mr. Collins.
Mr. Chairman, through you,
Chairman.
we find areas like around the University of Wyoming and other places like that where people who live in those areas have had no ability to park in front of their homes or even close to their homes, especially like during this time of year. And so special accommodations have been made for that. An ordinance was passed creating a special district, and those folks do have to they have to buy a sticker, and that sticker gives them the right to be able to park in front of their homes.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Larson.
And so they don't have a driveway? I'm just trying to get this in my head because I'm not that familiar. So those homes don't have a driveway and the only place for them to park is on the street?
Mr. Collins.
Mr. Chairman, through you, I believe some homes do have driveways and garages, some homes do not.
I see. Thank you.
It's a typical older 100-year-old neighborhood, if you will.
Right. And then, Mr. Chairman, please.
Mr. Larson.
And Mr. Chairman, just to make up. Mr. Chairman. So I confess, I always thought anybody could park in our parking garage and in our 2 streets. Shows how smart I am. But would that help alleviate some of the problem with congestion if we made some of that space available for public as a whole?
Mr. Collins.
Mr. Chairman, through you to the good representative, sir, I think it would make a huge difference, especially like, the lobbyists that I've met recently, yourselves when you come for committee, JC, different committee meetings, being able to park in that parking garage, I think would make a huge difference. They wouldn't have to go move their car every 2 hours, and they would have a covered, safe parking place to have their vehicles. And like I say, right now, if you went over there right now, I bet you there's at least 175 spaces open that are not currently being used.
Representative McCann.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Is this going to be a year-round program or just kind of times of high congestion?
Mr. Collins.
Mr. Chairman, through you to the representative. Sir, I think that would be up to you guys, the state, to make that determination. At the minimum, what I would hope would happen is when the legislative session is in place, that those places would be opened up and the lobbyists and people who come here to be part of this process could either buy a pass or could be given a pass in order to be able to be there. But I would love to see it opened up so people could go there. And once people get to know that that's available, I think it would make the experience a lot better. And then anytime there's a committee meeting, appropriations and JC, those guys are here quite a lot. I think it would be important to have those spaces opened at that same time.
Follow up? Oh. Okay, Representative Posey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question is relating to handicap parking. And I know those don't have no time limit in terms, but I know there's only a couple right in front of the Capitol. A couple weeks ago, I seen a person that was disabled coming down the street. So those 2 parking spaces was already taken. I think there's only 2 parking spaces in front of the Capitol. But how does that factor into the parking, and is there enough for handicap parking? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, through you, I think that's a very good question, Representative. And when I was touring your parking garages, there's significant on the main floor handicap parking that, if was not restricted to state employees, could really help alleviate that problem.
Follow up?
Thank you.
Representative Wiley.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Mr. Mayor, so if you go to page 2, Romanet 2, how many storefronts are within that half-mile radius that we're talking about there?
Mr. Collins.
Mr. Chairman, through you, I would tell you that's most of, I should have brought the map. That's most of our downtown. That goes all the way down to like 17th Street where like 2 doors down, all that area. So it would be the vast majority of our downtown area.
Follow up?
Mr. Chairman, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So if we have that and we go down to 1,320, it's a quarter of a mile, lineal feet, how much of downtown area would we exclude then?
Mr. Collins.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I wish I was better at math, to be able to tell you that for sure. I would guess that would probably get us down to 20th, maybe 19th Street, down in that area, sir. Still a very busy part of our community, not quite as busy maybe as 16th and 17th Street.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Garinger.
Thank you, Mayor Collins, for presenting the information that you have. It is important to hear from the city that hosts so much of the legislative events. I guess with what we're talking about here, if we were to open up the Safeway lot, the St. Mary's lot, the parking structure during those times, would that in the spirit of cooperation, would you be amenable then to also opening up the parking, say, maybe even just within a couple of blocks of the Capitol?
Mr. Collins.
Mr. Chairman, through you, I'm obviously open to doing whatever we need to do to make this work. I would just like to share with you the experience that we have, though. When we had longer parking times, let's say like 4 hours, one of the suggestions, maybe we make it 4 hours. What we found was that employees who work in this area would take those parking spaces, leave at lunch, come back, park for another 4 hours, and there was no place for customers to park. There's no place for people who wanted to come and tour the Capitol, the museum, to park, because as the good chairman said just a minute ago, there's a couple thousand people that work in this campus. And if they're, I would just share with you, we have a walking problem. People really want to park really close to where they work. And, some days in Cheyenne, the wind blows a little bit and it's cold, and I understand that. So if we make it convenient, then what's going to happen is we're going to get here at 8 o'clock in the morning, there will be no parking. And so I've been resistant to that because I really do believe that it's important that we have a place in our downtown for visitors, tourists who want to come and tour this building, to go to the Capitol, to go to the museum, if they want to go into a state office because they have business to do. I think it's important to be able to have a place for them. And so that's why we build parking garages downtown. We have 2 of them now, and I'm suggesting to the city council we build a 3rd one because we have to have a long-term place for people who live and work not live, but who work down here 8 hours a day. And I think we have the capacity to do that. So yes, sir, I'd be open to doing whatever is necessary to make it work. But I just wanted to share with you why I think it's not a good idea, because if we do it longer, people will just park there all day. If that makes sense.
Anyone else? Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for your
Mr. Chairman, thank you
testimony.
guys. Appreciate you.
Do we have anyone else in the room that would like to testify on this bill?
Andrew, you want to come up?
Guess you know the procedure. State your name and start in. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Andrew Coleman. I'm the Administrator for the General Services Division at the Department of A&I. One of the areas that we work on is regulating state facilities and maintaining them, as well as the parking and the grounds around them. So as far as folks that issue parking permits or state IDs, that's us, which I believe you all have, I think, received in order to have access to the Capitol.
Representative Nicholas, please.
Andrew, could you tell us what the policies and procedures currently are for the three places we're talking about around the Capitol that you have for St. Mary's, for the Safeway, and for the parking garage?
Mr. Coleman.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Nicholas, so starting with the St. Mary's parking lot, that is assigned for state parking passes only. The parking garage is signed for that as well, although the third floor, we try to have available for folks that are attending for longer periods. The lot, the old Safeway lot is described as the Pioneer lot. Over on Pioneer, I believe, maybe, I can't recall offhand, Mr. Chairman. But that is one area also when we have folks that contact us with concerns. We try to work with folks when there's issues. When we have like school buses visiting and stuff, we try to direct things to be parked over in that lot, since that is probably the least used of those spaces.
So my understanding is the first kind of half block is state employees, and then there's really no restriction for public parking on the back side of that lot. Is that accurate? Or?
Mr. Coleman.
Mr. Chairman, to my recollection, that's correct.
Follow up?
So, yeah, then, so with regards to these pictures, this was yesterday or day before yesterday, and the parking garage is basically empty. And I'm curious, do you monitor how often and in what capacity the parking garage is being used?
Mr. Coleman.
Mr. Chairman, we do monitor. We do enforcement through there for parking. I would say that there oftentimes are more available spaces in those spots. It usually is more constricted during the legislative session. As you all know, the underground parking garage for the Hirschler is reserved for legislators and elected officials. And so that's about 93 spots that we have otherwise would be Hirschler building and Capitol building employees that then go find other spaces to park in our other lots.
So let me follow up. So, but the answer is, do you monitor and know how many cars are actually using it on a daily basis?
Mr. Coleman.
For the parking garage? Because this is amazing. There's not even a tenth of it is being used.
Mr. Chairman, we do not have numbers every day of what is being utilized.
And let me follow up. So it seems to me that that's something we should know, and the A&I should know, because if there's always a bunch of empty parking spaces, we ought to get, and people are here, we ought to get them used. I mean, that's kind of one of your functions ought to be. So have you had that internal discussion within the agency on whether, what the best uses are for the parking garage, and particularly these parking lots during the session?
Mr. Coleman.
Mr. Chairman, we do have discussions on kind of the use of our parking. One of the areas that we work to make sure happens during session to free up spaces, particularly for folks that are displaced, from other parking is to make sure that state-owned vehicles are not taking up space on the first and second floor of the parking garage. I think agencies find that sometimes useful because then there's vehicles that don't have snow that has to be removed in the winter, that sort of thing. But we try to make sure that the first and second floor are more available for folks to be able to come and go from work.
So, one more follow-up.
One more, just, this is the good one right here.
Yeah, this is a
Let's
good
do
one. So in order for you to modify your policy, so we don't have to pass a law on parking, what's the process for us to sit down with you and figure that out?
it. Mr. Coleman.
Mr. Chairman, I think we would be able to talk about that with you. Our sort of regulating authority over us is the State Building Commission when it comes to facilities, including the grounds around them. And so we talk with them regularly. That would be something we could talk about. I guess one thing I should note is we don't have staff to go and actively try to monitor parking. We don't have any parking enforcement staff. Our grounds department, who is also responsible for snow removal, as well as maintaining the outside of all the buildings, are the folks that kind of function as our eyes and ears within the parking areas because they're working there.
Mr. Co-Chair, I may say that I constantly, almost every day, use the St. Mary's parking lot. I don't have a sticker or anything else, and I've never got a ticket or a notice or anything like that. So you're obviously not enforcing it. Otherwise, I'd have 300 tickets. So,
Representative Larson, would you like a shot at this?
I would, Andrew, good to see you. Thinking about you this morning on another topic, I'll get with you. I think it kind of ties in. It would seem to me that we would know the number of state employees because we're issuing parking permits. And then we'd also have an inventory of the number of spaces available at all the spots. And so we could conclude from that how many parking spots we need and then accommodate the unused space to the public as a whole. You know, and so in my mind, I'm thinking maybe the first floor or the first, is there 2 or 3 at the parking garage, Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Coleman.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Larson, the parking structure has 3 floors.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So
Follow up.
please, continuation.
Okay.
So, Mr. Chairman and Andrew, so, you know, maybe the first 2 floors are state employees and St. Mary's, or we, you know, but I kind of would think that we would be able to, as Representative Nicholas say, come up with an idea to allow them to do that. And then, Mr. Chairman, it also seems that
Continuation, please.
yes, it continued phase 3. It would seem logical then that we could also, as we issue those parking passes, that they have a prohibition from parking on the street in front of the Capitol or around the Capitol for those state employees. So agency employees. Does that make sense? That was the question you were looking for.
Mr. Coleman, there you go. It's simple.
Mr. Chairman, I don't have with me the inventory of our parking spaces. We do have that information, but I don't have it with me. As far as a prohibition of parking on the street, that is something I don't think we've ever talked about. I've not heard of that idea before, so I guess I don't have a good answer off the top of my head on that.
Committee, any more questions? Thank you, Mr. Coleman.
Thank you,
Appreciate
Mr.
it.
Chairman.
Is there anyone else? Seeing none? Oh, whoops. Sorry about that.
Come on, Jonathan.
Good afternoon, Mr. Vice Chairman, members of the committee, Pete Obermueller. Most of you know me in my professional capacity with the Petroleum Association of Wyoming. This is not a PAW bill. They don't have any position. I'm here as Pete Obermueller, a guy who has to work here at this Capitol quite a lot, and who, in my professional capacity, represents people who have to come here from other places. And as a guy who works here a lot, people know that I work here a lot, and so they seek my assistance in how to come down here and interact with you all on a regular basis during the year and especially during the legislative session. In fact, there's an event happening here this week that some friends of mine are doing, and they asked me about where do we park, how do we park, are we going to be okay in 2 hours and all that? And the answer is no, you're not going to be okay in 2 hours. And you all know how these committees work. This committee is noticed for at noon recess. If you're not one of us who are here, you don't know that that doesn't mean noon and that it won't be over at 2. You show up and a discussion goes quite a lot longer. And you can't, you either just take the ticket or you have to get up in the middle and try to go change it. So, Mr. Chairman, fundamentally, this bill is about access for the public, especially during the most important time for people when you all are acting, which is during the legislative session. So that's why I support the bill. I'm grateful to Chairman Brown for bringing it. I want to talk about a couple things. First of all, let's keep in mind that this, while the discussion has been about Cheyenne and that is critical, it does apply statewide and it does impact other communities. In my 12 years, I've gone to committee hearings in 20 communities in 27 different locations. And all of them, of course, are unique and have different issues. We heard one from Chairman Brown. I will mention, if any of you have held a committee meeting or been at a committee meeting at the University of Wyoming, the parking there is, of course, a problem as well. So it's not just Cheyenne, although Cheyenne is part of it. So a couple things about the bill, Mr. Chairman. First of all, coming back to Cheyenne, I'd like to ask you to first separate in your minds the downtown issues the mayor was talking about and the Capitol complex. They're different zones and they have different requirements. And in fact, I'll get to that in a second. So the conversation about having customers be able to get in and out of businesses doesn't apply to the Capitol. And according to the language of the bill, it doesn't apply even to the Capitol complex 98% of the time, because it only applies when you're meeting an official business. So next year, when you're here for 20 days, it applies for 20 days. And the rest of the time, the 2 hours go right back on. Or if JAC is meeting or whatever, or a committee in another town. Second, directing your attention to page 2, lines 2 through 5. This is the Capitol complex, and it references the Capitol complex defined in Wyoming Statutes 95101. That has specific boundaries that do not include the neighborhoods to the north of Hirschler. All that discussion off the table. Okay, the Capitol complex ends at the street that goes in front of Hirschler. It goes, and then it goes down to the street that on the south side of the Supreme Court. So if you look at the end of line 5, it says or. So in Cheyenne, all we're talking about as a boundary is the Capitol complex. We're not talking about a half mile that impacts their businesses or any of that. It's just the Capitol complex. And if you'd like to belt and suspenders that, you could add in a whichever is less, if you'd like to do that. But please don't be confused by what's happening downtown. Secondly, about downtown, a little history. This is my 12th session. For 10 sessions, there has been a mechanism by which people can purchase through the city a way to park on the streets and avoid the duration restrictions. When I first started, it was just a flat fee for the whole session. And it changed throughout whatever. The previous 2 years prior to last year, it was the app that the mayor talked about. 2 hours are free, and then you pay per hour after that or by the day or whatever. Last year, that went away. And so we approached the mayor and the city to try to come to a solution about bringing that back. And they suggested that there was no ordinance to allow it, so they would work on an ordinance. Well, they did work on an ordinance. You heard the mayor talk about it, but it's only for downtown. The ordinance is to bring that paying app back, but only in the zone downtown. They were not part of the solution around the Capitol. So hence the reason for that part in this bill. So all the discussion about, one last thing is, there was a question from Representative McCann about the timing, is this all year round, all that. I think I referenced this, but it only applies when you are meeting an official business in the Capitol or in any other place in Wyoming. and then it goes away. So now regarding the amendments that the chairman brought, I think I like the ideas. It's kind of two different concepts. I think I like the second. It accomplishes the same things, but in two different ways. I think I support the second idea, which, Mr. Chairman, would be, I think it would create a Romanet 3. First of all, support the amendment to reduce to a quarter mile. I think that's fair. And that actually, a quarter mile is about what the Capitol complex is anyway, so that would kind of equalize it other places. But it also does, like the chairman said, if we're meeting at, if we're meeting at the school in Lander, for example, Representative Larson, they have a parking lot there. If Lander has restrictions on the street right at the parking lot, you don't have to worry about the street, so you should be exempt in that case. So you reduce to a quarter mile, and then you say if there's free publicly available parking within a quarter mile, then you don't have to do it either. Now, if the state ends up, or you all end up making St. Mary's or the structure free and open to the public, then that would automatically exempt Cheyenne from the bill as well. But right now, they're all signed perfectly clearly for state employees only. So when my friends call and say, I heard they don't enforce it over there, or it's some sort of gentleman's agreement that the back half of a parking lot is not enforced. It doesn't say state employees only except for the back half. I can't rely on that. I'm not as lucky as the good representative who's never gotten ticketed. Mr. Chairman, the parking lots are a solution, but the city has to be a part of the solution too. And this bill helps to have the city part of the solution. I'll leave it at that and let my colleagues talk. Thank you for letting me go on so long.
Thank you, Mr. Obermueller. It's nice to see you're not very passionate about this. So is there any questions?
Pretty docile.
Yeah, very, no questions? Mr. Nicholas? Nothing? Thank you, Pete. Who's next? Please state your name and start in.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Catherine Wilkinson here on behalf of myself. I am a registered lobbyist. This is my 18th session, and parking has increasingly been more difficult each year, especially in the past couple of years. I wanted to thank Representative Brown for bringing this issue to this committee so that people can sit down and be at the table to find a solution. It is very difficult to find parking, especially if you have little children and need to drop them off to school and then get here in time for your committee business. When I'm here, I don't leave until you leave, unless I need to go and drop kids off and come back. It is very difficult to find anywhere to park that's not the 2-hour parking or the residential permit parking. And I think we had a great discussion with the mayor, so I wanted to thank them at least for coming to the table with this, but there are too many 2-hour parking zones around here. There's too many of the residential parking. Even if a few of those spots were opened up, where there's just a few more side streets that folks would be able to park, and I think the huge solution would be to partner with the state and allow permits. I do support the amendments. I do think that the quarter mile would be more reasonable. And then I know several of my colleagues, we would be happy to pay as well. It does not need to be a free. I think that does absolutely help the public for those coming into town. But there is definitely a willing partnership to pay for those parking spots that are at a premium. So I just wanted to add my support and thank you all for taking the time to discuss this. I would stand for any questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Wilkinson. Is there any questions? Seeing none, next up, sir. Oh, hold on, Representative Nicholas.
So if we just opened up the entire Safeway parking lot for anyone to use during the session, would that solve the problem?
Ms. Wilkinson.
Mr. Chairman, yes, I do believe that that would be a missing piece of this puzzle. It wouldn't solve it for other communities in the state that have that same issue. But at least for the capital, it would. But this is statewide for any legislative meetings.
Follow up?
I'll follow up a little bit on that. For other locations around the state, if LSO would work with the legislature to make sure that wherever we go, there is parking available, that would fix that problem as well. I mean, we shouldn't be holding meetings where there's no public parking. And so that if they could look harder, and it's not that hard to do.
Ms. Wilkinson.
Mr. Chairman, I would agree.
Thank you.
Committee, anyone else have any more questions? All right, next up.
Mr. Chairman, Jonathan Downing, on behalf of myself. Also, Capitol Club Board had met with the city, and we appreciate them taking the time to visit. As an individual, when you are looking at locations around the state for the interim, I would recommend, if we don't get the parking issue resolved, I agree with a good representative that we ought to look at other locations. My alma mater over the hill is not conducive to holding meetings when you have folks that are a little bit older than me or have some ADA challenges. It's just, there's not enough parking for those types of situations. As far as around the Capitol, similar issue as far as on the ADA component or older folks when they're wanting to come and participate in the process. And so as you look at that, within the professional advocates, lobbyists, those that are working in the Capitol and others as far as that are within some of those NGOs and the like, we'll find where to park normally. I think that's a great idea as far as looking at the Safeway parking lot. Parking, during my time working in this building over the years, it gets ping-pong balled between this body, the governing body of Cheyenne, which I'm very sympathetic to them on, and then sometimes you'll see State Building Commission get drug into it as well. And so I appreciate you taking the time to discuss the issue as we look for solutions to that issue. I will say there are other parts during the interim, around the state, where parking's not an issue during the interim. The college that's up in the central part of the state, great place to hold a meeting, very accessible. There's other places, and actually looking at all the members here as far as their communities, very welcoming to saying, hey, come participate in the process. I would hope that whatever solutions we look towards, that we would do the same as far as my hometown. I'd be open for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Downing. Is there any questions? Seeing none. Is there anyone else in the room that would like to testify? Is there anyone online that would like to testify? Yeah, please, come on up. Mr. Coleman. Please proceed.
Mr. Chairman, there was one area I wanted to mention to the committee as I've been kind of thinking over the conversation here. One thing we have had an issue with when we have publicly available parking or issues or areas like that is that folks tend to turn that into kind of a common space that they want to use after hours. And we don't really have any staff that can maintain regulation after hours. Once you make a parking lot available, then you need to have, be able to enforce, proper use of it. We have some events that are permitted on the St. Mary's lot, particularly over the summer. And we worked with the organizers of those events to try and minimize things like beer cans, other trash left over, or inappropriate uses of the parking, bringing food events that aren't permitted on there. And we work well with them, and we appreciate all of their effort and the folks that they work with to comply with that. But I think that is something that we've considered is the sort of overall ramifications of making more public parking spaces when we don't have staffing that can maintain that.
Okay, are you up for some questions here?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Larson or Representative Larson?
Thank you. Andrew, I think that what you say makes sense. I think that it would also, as we're trying to get this collaborative effort between the city and the state and provide more parking, that it seems logical. And the question is, would you agree that the city would be willing to come in if we make more space available to help monitor some of that, like that parking and activities going on after hours? I mean, if we could get that type of agreement, does that alleviate some of the concern that you see? Because you do have some responsibility there.
Mr. Coleman.
Mr. Chairman, I think that's a good discussion we could have with the city, and with the recent changes to extending a paid parking district all the way up to 24th in front of the Capitol, we have had discussions, and I've been to several meetings with the city. I've spoken with Mayor Collins, and we are looking forward to talking with them in the police department as they go to finalize what those restrictions were going to be. So I think there's an opportunity here for an open communication with the city.
Any further questions? Yes, Representative Nicholas.
So Andrew, for purposes of the rest of this session, would you be willing to go have a chat with the capital construction folks, because they are part of this, and your director, and just bring out and take some covers over the sign on the Safeway parking lot and make that available now for public parking during just daytime parking? You can put no overnight parking, but you can just do it, and we can fix that problem temporarily, at least for this session, and just see how it works.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Coleman.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman.
You're good.
I can go have that conversation. I don't want to commit any of the folks that are above my pay grade as to what their concerns might
Do
be.
you want me to go with you?
Okay, well, thank you. Seeing no more questions, Mr. Coleman, I think we'll close public testimony. Committee? What's your pleasure? Moved by Representative Larson and seconded by Representative Geringer. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir, Mr. Nicholas.
thank you. I'm going to move to table the bill, but I want to discuss it and why I want to table it. So.
Please.
And the reason I want to do it is this. I don't have any doubt that we can work with ANI and whomever to open up the Safeway parking lot for the rest of this session. And that we can develop some policies to allow use during session. And so I don't think this is really needed, number one. And number two, we need to educate LSO on where we set up our meetings in other communities. I mean, biggest problem is that when we're meeting in downtown Casper, because unless we're at a facility that has a parking lot, it's kind of hard to park around there. That's the only place I've really had problems with it. But now that almost all of our meetings are at the Casper office building, and so that problem has kind of gone away, but we still sometimes meet downtown. At UW, they allow, if you're having a meeting at the new complex, the sports, what do you call it?
That's close enough.
They
The new complex.
That's the one that's across the street from the motels. They allow you to park in their parking lot when, if school is not in session. And so it's like on weekends, if there are events over there, you can park around that facility. And that's almost where all of the public meetings are now. Most of our committee meetings around the state don't have that much attendance, so it's not that big of a problem. The biggest problem is probably for the lobbyists who attend versus public, because that's almost 99% of the people there tend to be lobbyists and not the public. And so and I would concur with the mayor that a lot of people that work in the Hirschler building park as close as they can. They tend to line up in the St. Mary's parking lot, and if they're not there, they're on that side of the street, it's not 2-hour parking over close to the hospital. So those cars are there. There's a race to get those parking spaces. When we're in session, the good representative from Fremont County and his little yellow Jeep, because he's usually the first person to show up at the Capitol about 4:30 or 5 in the morning, he's always got his designated parking spot right there across from the state capitol door. But I think it's a solution that we can fix and not have to pass legislation designating and interfering with the operations of our communities and making us special just because we're having a public meeting to modify their parking rules and regulations. I mean, we can accommodate this ourselves if we do it right, and that's just my 2 cents. So.
Thank you, Mr. Nicholas. Mr. Larson?
Thank you, Mr. Tarver. Appreciate it. I agree with tabling it. I just don't want the bill to die because I think we need to be able to come out with something
Leverage.
leverage. But here's some other things, and I guess, can you see me looking out of the corner of my eye, that I think we need to do is I think that we need to address the agencies parking on the street. I think we've got designated parking, and they should be prohibited from parking on the street. I think and I think making parking available to the public, let's come back and figure out again how many employees we have, Mr. Chairman, and how many parking spots. And if we got enough, why do we care if the public's parking there year round? You know, I think depending on the availability of parking, I don't know why we would want to exclude the public from having access if it's Safeway or wherever. So I think once we have the numbers and once we know the number of spots, then we could formulate a little better plan and then put some restrictions in there to where we don't abuse that ability to park as an agency employee parking along there. So, Mr. Chairman, those are just my thoughts. I think we can fix this too.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak on this? Mr. Wiley.
Mr. Chairman, yeah, I just kind of want to add a little bit, you know, traveling this last couple of years for different committee meetings and stuff. I must not be on as prominent of committees as, you know, the good representative here, because I've been in, you know, my alma mater before, and it's tough to find a spot because we'll get stuck in the library, and LSO does a great job, right? But you're running around campus and stuff, and especially if school's in, you know, the kids are there. So, I mean, this could be beneficial to that, because it has been a little tiring sometimes to find a good place over there.
Mr. Larson.
I'm a little less sympathetic around the rest of the state. And now, I agree in Laramie, you know, they could do better. I think we'd fix that. But I get a little uncomfortable as we go around to our various communities, imposing ourselves and saying we get this special treatment. And our lobbyists get that special treatment. I've had a ticket at Lovell one time, my own fault. You know, there's this blue guy in a wheelchair, and you're not supposed to park, and I get it. So I drugged my leg and everything, Mr. Chairman, but it didn't work. So I think I'm less concerned about being around the rest of the state. I think if the biggest concern around the rest of the state really is in Laramie, I think that we also can probably have that conversation with them and help resolve that. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. So this is a concern that I've heard from multiple people. You know, parking is a problem and in certain circumstances, and committee, I would like to see us at least move this forward. Get it to the floor. Let's have this conversation a little bit broader. And you know, I'm sure between Representative Larson and Representative Nicholas, we can probably solve this somewhere along the way. But I would certainly like to see us move this forward. And Representative Nicholas.
So I just got a text from the director, Tricia Bach, saying, if you table that, we will fix this.
Representative Nicholas, I do believe this is not just a Cheyenne problem, and that's why I would like to see this at least move forward, and perhaps you guys can't fix this bill, I don't know, but I've heard you're pretty good, and I think maybe you could fix this, and that's just my 2 cents. Anyone else?
Mr. Chairman.
Representative Larson.
I think your logic's sound, and I think, no, I really do. I think move it forward. We've got 3 or 4 weeks here before, and we got time to see how that moves at the hopper. 2 weeks. Well, I've seen Andrew work before.
To have it get out of committee, and then crossover, basically, right? So.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, please.
Thank you. With this being my bill, I will, and it having my name on there, I will work with Majority Floor Leader if we pass it out of this committee, keep it down on the bottom of the committee, the whole list, until we can have some discussions externally and internally to see what we can do to fix this and have this discussion. If talks fall apart, we've got another horse in the race, but what I'm hearing is there's something coming strong in the backstretch. So let's see what we can do.
Representative Nicholas.
I do have a question on the bill itself. So the way it's currently drafted, this provides authorization of anyone attending a legislative meeting. So and how would you know that? So the city's not going to know it. The meter lady who's coming by and marking tires is not going to know it. And so does that mean we're going to have stickers in the windows or some electronic component? I mean, there's a lot of complications to actually enforcement of this thing, and it's going to take money. And and everyone's going to say, I'm here just to go for a meeting.
Representative Nicholas, that's a great point, and you've got your work cut out for you, and I look forward to seeing the hard work that you do on this bill. But can we vote
Chairman?
on, Representative Geringer, please?
I'd like to propose an amendment on line
Can-
7.
Do we need to
page-
finish the tabling motion?
So you have a motion on the table.
Oh, you do?
Mr. Chairman, you have a motion on the table right now to move the bill. The motion to table is out of order.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I haven't moved the table yet.
Yeah, that's out of order.
Representative Geringer.
On page 2, line 7, changing 1/2 to 1/4 mile.
Second.
Donna, did we get that? So,
Yes, I did. Page 2, line 7.
So I guess we're
1/2
voting-
1/4.
yes, thank you, ma'am. So we're voting on changing it from 1/2 to 1/4. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Right?
All those opposed?
No.
That's been passed. Anyone else?
So, Mr. Vice Chair, there was a recommendation, I think, from the chairman that addressed if there are parking spaces available, could you have that language for us?
Mr. Chairman, I would move, I've got some draft language here. I'll read it out, but I'll work with Donna in the long run. Say the provisions of this section shall not apply to the locations of official meetings of the state legislature, including any of its committees, if a free parking lot or parking structure is available to the public within 1/4 mile of the meeting location. I'd move that amendment.
Moved, seconded by Representative Banks. Representative Nicholas.
Did you say 1/4 mile? Okay.
Any discussion?
Question.
Question being called. Who's in favor of this amendment?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Been passed. Representative Larson.
So, precursor question before my amendment to the chairman. Romanent 2 is other locations around the state, correct?
Correct.
So, Mr. Chairman, I'm really struggling with us imposing our will on the rest of the state. And I would make a motion to an amendment that would alleviate, or that would delete Romanent 2, which would be line 7, 8, 9, and 10. And then would also, if we do that, would get rid of the amendment that we just adopted.
Second.
Moved by Representative Larson, seconded by Representative Nicholas. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Chairman.
I'd just ask why you didn't bring this first. Why'd we have to go through all that extra work?
And Mr.
Poor
Chairman,
Donna.
my response was he knows how slow I am. On the uptake and on the movement, both.
Mr. Chairman,
Representative Geringer.
I'm against the amendment. I think we leave it as is and have the discussion on the floor.
Okay, so any further discussion? All right, those in favor of that amendment to amend the amendment, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no.
No.
That amendment has failed. Back on the bill.
Question.
Question being called on House Bill 225.
This is a roll call vote on House Bill 225, parking during legislative meetings. I should say 225 as amended. Representative Banks.
Aye.
Representative Geringer.
Aye.
Representative Larson.
No.
Representative McCann. Representative Nicholas.
No.
Representative Posey.
Aye.
Representative Tarver.
Aye.
Representative Wiley.
No.
Chairman Brown.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, we have 6 aye and 3 no.
Thank you. Thank you, committee. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will, I think myself, Representative Nicholas, and Trish and yourself probably ought to sit down and have a discussion, and we'll see what we can come up with before we have to cancel this one out. Appreciate you coming. Appreciate all the testimony on that bill, ladies and gentlemen.
Andrew, we can see if she's available at lunch tomorrow.
volunteer to be a non-Cheyenne.
Do you see if
That would be a
Tricia's
fantastic
available at lunch
idea.
tomorrow?
We can do that for you. Thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that moves us on. We have got we're coming back in at 2:30, right?
Yes.
Okay, so we've got enough time to finish this bill up here, I think. We've got House Bill 226, and we have got Representative Campbell. Welcome to Transportation, Representative Campbell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, representatives. I'm here today to speak on House Bill 226. This is a bill relating to motor vehicle license plates, authorizing specially designed license plates to be issued to benefit the search and rescue efforts across the state. It specifies requirements, authorizing fees, making conforming amendments, specifying applicability, and providing for an effective date. This is, I think, a no-brainer. Search and Rescue does hundreds and hundreds of rescues across the state of Wyoming every year. These guys use their own equipment, their own time, their own dime. They're kind of specialists. There's a lot of these people are, rock climbers, or can rappel out of a helicopter, or have medical experience. They do a lot of things, and they go out when we don't want to go. They're out looking for loved ones in the worstest weather that Wyoming has to offer. And again, they use all their own equipment, their own time, their own dime, to where I believe that they're worthy of having a special license plate designating that they are search and rescue. It costs $100 a year for the first year, to make them. This does have a little price tag on it. It's about $70,000 all said and done. But once it's established and everything, it's also going to bring in funding for our search and rescue, which is a very good thing. I ask you to please support this bill.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Representative Campbell. Any questions for Representative Campbell? This looks like a very similar language to the bill that was passed out of here for the wildlife conservation plates. Very, very valiant effort, so appreciate you bringing that forward. Any state agencies here? Taylor and George, both? Every state agencies at this point? Yep. Please identify yourself for the record.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, my name is George Niken. I'm the Deputy Director at the Wyoming Office of Homeland Security. I know the sheriff over here is sweating it because he's been parked outside for over 2 hours. So,
Not yet, but get close. Been smiling during that last election.
Sheriff, if you'll please introduce yourself for the record.
Yes, my name is Clint Becker. I'm the Sheriff of Converse County out of Douglas, Wyoming.
Thank you. And Mr. Rossetti?
Mr. Chairman, Taylor Rossetti, Deputy Director at WYDOT. I guess I'll go first if
Yep,
if it
that's
pleases
exactly where
the
we're going
chair.
to start. Yep, please.
You are correct. This is very similar to the wildlife conservation bill that was passed a few years ago. I would also draw your guys' attention to Senate File 149. It did come out of committee earlier today. That modified that bill slightly, allowing that bill to be issued at the counter with the county treasurers. I won't speak to whether or not that's a good idea here or not. I haven't spoken to the treasurers to see if they would be agreeable to do that. The reason behind that, though, was when people come in and see those distinctive plates, they often want to purchase them. As structured here, they would actually have to apply to me at the department first, typically 30 days ahead of when their vehicles are supposed to be registered, which is to give us time to get that plate to the county. So when the customer goes to the counter to get the plate, it's readily available for them. Often what we see though, however, is somebody goes in there without the 30-day notice, sees it on the wall and really wants it and doesn't want to wait the 30 days. So just something to contemplate here for the committee. The bill itself is very straightforward, as the good representative mentioned as he was presenting it. It is $100 for the search and rescue account the first year. In addition to that, there is the standard $30 specialty plate fee. That goes to the highway fund and helps offset the fiscal note to design the plate. And then every year thereafter, it is just the $25 fee, and that would just be placed into the search and rescue account from there. The other thing that folks that are familiar with these license plates bills may look for or ask about is on page 5, lines 16 through 21. It's the standard language that I think that the legislatures of the past have tried to put in there. If these plates don't sell, then they just don't stick around for another plate cycle. The 1,000 sets of 1,000 has been pretty standard over the years. That way, you know, folks get to decide if they're interested in buying this plate. If we sell 1,000, after that, it exists forever. If not, it just ceases to exist after this plate issue. With that, sir, I'd certainly answer any questions.
Representative Nicholas.
How many specialty plates?
Mike, please.
How many specialty plates are out there now?
Mr. Chairman, Representative Nicholas, I would have to give you a count, but I can tell you we have them for all branches of the military, prisoners of war, Pearl Harbor, University of Wyoming. You've got the normal prestige license plates. You've got the wildlife conservation plate. You've got the University of Wyoming plate. And then just this session alone, there's potential for the rodeo plate. So there's several that are out there now, sir.
Follow up? No? Good. Representative McCann, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've been involved with these search and rescue teams. Does all the money that gets brought in by that, does that go to the search and rescue? Because I know a lot of them are funded by the department, or the sheriff's department, or at least some of them. I don't know a lot of them, but the one I was, the two that I've been associated with were funded by sheriff.
Mr. Rossetti, do you have any of that information, or do we want to move over to the sheriff?
It's probably a two-part answer here, Mr. Chairman and Representative McCann. So the $100 and the $25 annual fee would go into the account at Homeland Security that's in 1913-301. That's on page 3, line 5. So that money, the initial fee and the annual registration fee, extra registration fee would go into that account. The $30 that I meant up front is just on that initial issuance, and that goes to the highway fund. So the additional proceeds in addition to normal registrations will support search and rescue directly.
Thank you.
Any further questions for Mr. Rossetti? Seeing none.
I do have a question.
Yes.
What's the purpose of going it to Homeland Security?
We'll go ahead and go over to Mr. Nyken. George?
Mr. Chair and Representative Nicholas, we are the ones that pay for the equipment that is either damaged or lost. And we do have a meeting that is annual with the Search and Rescue Council to pay out of the fund that we receive the money from for lost and damaged equipment.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Sheriff, floor is yours, sir. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, sir, Chairman and the board. I'm not used to speaking like this without raising my hand first, because usually it's a court thing.
Well, we can make you do that if
I
you'd
know,
like.
thank you. It's kind of nice not to have to. So I'm here in two capacities. I'm the sheriff of Converse County. I've been the sheriff for 18 years now. So the county supports the local search and rescue group. Most search and rescues groups are 100% volunteer. We as sheriffs are responsible, mandated through statute 183609, that we are responsible for all search and rescues within our county. We have a team. Our county gives us $20,000 a year in the search and rescue fund for our county. They provide all the equipment. They've been very good in supporting us, the commissioners, the county commission. So I'm also here in a capacity of being on the Wyoming Search and Rescue Council. The Wyoming Search and Rescue Council is 11 members that are governor appointed, 3 of which are sheriffs, and the other individuals are from other aspects of the community around the state. What this fund provides, that this money will be going to, when we go on a search and rescue, any damaged equipment we have during a search only, and or any additional equipment which is needed, say airplanes, helicopters, things that our county can't afford to support, this fund is available for us. And what we have to do after each search and fuel is it's very regimented program. The funds that the Homeland Security houses for us. Each individual search and rescue team, after they do a search, they have a certain amount of time to get the expenditures of that search filed with the Office of Homeland Security. And then what happens is the council meets, and those additional requests for damaged equipment, et cetera, go in front of the council. And then the council meets and makes sure that it meets strict guidelines so that it can be reimbursed back to the county. So, for example, we had a vehicle that lost a transmission during a search, and that we were able to turn that back in to the Search and Rescue Fund and have that paid for through the Search and Rescue Fund. It is a volunteer program. All the people that work in our county are volunteers. So what we've seen is the way the Search and Rescue Fund has been funded for years is through donations, through hunting licenses, ATV stickers, and things of that nature. And what we've seen since 2020 till 2024 is that there's been a decline of about $117,000 in the donations coming into the fund. And so the council has been talking for several years on trying to get different ways to assist in the funding from what it has been for several years. And this was brought up to me by a citizen, and I ran with it. I worked really close with our county treasurer, Joel Schell, Senator Boner, and we came up with a bill that would work with the great assistance of the treasurer. With our county treasurer. So I'm just asking, this is all, I guess if I back up a little bit, this was approved for me to move forward with from the Search and Rescue Council, and we also have the support of the Wyoming Sheriff's Association as well.
Okay. Committee, any questions for the sheriff? Yes, Representative Posey, please.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I heard similar support at the local level from, the county government that I'm from. And I know it was one of the top issues of search and rescue, we're along the Wind River Range there, and there was quite a bit that happened. So I think it's a good move forward. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Representative Posey. Mr. Niken.
Mr. Chair and members of the committee, I just want to emphasize the importance of this bill because, again, search and rescue operations are becoming more and more throughout the state. We are seeing a higher level of searches for out-of-state individuals, and out-of-state individuals really don't donate to the cause. So there is a concern there. And again, these operations are becoming more and more costly. So again, our office is in support of this bill. It's not going to be anything that's going to cause us any issues. So again, we're in support of this bill, and we're in support of search and rescue.
Committee, any questions for Mr. Nyken? Yes, Representative McCann, and then Representative Larson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. More of a curiosity, with the uptick of the rescues, are you seeing people with search and rescue insurance, or is that not happening?
Mr. Nyken or Sheriff?
Mr. Chairman and Representative McCann, I don't really know of any search and rescue insurance. So what's really been interesting in going through this whole process is the amount of out-of-state people that search and rescue is rescuing. This year alone, as if my memory serves me right, which I'm pretty sure it does, we've had 25 search and rescues within Wyoming this year alone. Talking to Sheriff Carr out of Teton County, every one of those search and rescues, another portion of this is every one of those search and rescues were due to commercial businesses that are allowing, this renting snowmobiles or some of that nature where they have to go get them. They've rescued 17 out-of-staters. Out of those 25, 17 out-of-staters and 8 residents of Wyoming this year. So that is of today. I can go back a little bit if you're interested. In 2024, there was 540 reported search and rescue missions. Now, a lot of these missions aren't reported through the Homeland Security because we handle them within our own county and we don't need to ask for additional funds. Of these missions, 278 individuals were non-residents and 225 individuals were residents of Wyoming. 2023, there were 670 reported search and rescue missions. Of these missions, 273 individuals were non-residents and 311 individuals were residents of Wyoming. But we see an uptick now that it seems like there's more people coming to recreate here in Wyoming. And like Director Nyken said, most of this is all funded by the state individuals who donate through the hunting license, et cetera.
Okay. Representative Larson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. George, I think, send this your direction. Are you aware of any state that assesses a fee or anything upon the rescue to the person being rescued?
Mr. Chair and Representative Larson, I am. I know that the state of Colorado has a CORSAR card, which is a Colorado Search and Rescue card, and you purchase it through the state of Colorado, but it's no guarantee for search and rescue. Again, there was an incident in Colorado years ago where a lady was stuck on a mountain. And she was afraid to call because she thought she was going to be charged for the search and rescue. So again, it's on a donation basis. I know there is some states that are looking at charging for search and rescues if you do something negligent. But I don't have that information in front of me, but I can get you that information at a later date.
Follow up.
So as the Search and Rescue Council meets, that would be some great feedback from them on, I think the negligence thing has some, a little bit of, smells pretty good. I get your point on the lady that was afraid that that's probably fair, but, I think as we're looking at options, I think having that conversation may have value. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chair and Representative Larson, I do agree. I will get that information at our next meeting. I also want to clarify one important fact is the information that we receive from the counties. It's vitally important to get accurate information. I know there's small search and rescue operations that happen. Say if a vehicle went off the road because we've had problems with GPS leading people to road-closed areas around I-80 where they get stuck. Some of these incidents haven't been reported, but we're hoping to get that information, and that's something that we will emphasize at the next Search and Rescue Council meeting. So thank you.
Vice Chairman Tarver.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Sheriff, this may not pertain to this exact bill, but I'm just kind of curious. In Teton County, you said 18 out of the 24 snowmobile accidents that were rescued. Do we have a cost? What does it cost to go and rescue these folks? Is there a number there?
Sheriff?
Chairman Brown and Representative Tarver, our people are volunteers, so there's no cost for the volunteers to go, and the county picks up, like I said earlier, sometimes they're not reported to search and rescue, or the Search and Rescue Council, because there isn't that much expense. Maybe it's just fuel. Like I know north of Douglas, we've done a lot of search and rescues on any of these people out in the prairie area between Douglas and Gillette that are out there working in the oil field, and they decide they're going to try and go home, and they get stuck, and they call us, and we got to go 50, 60 miles north and then return, and then no sooner than go back out for another other people. So I don't know if the cost. It's hard for me to say the cost. I just know that the Converse County has purchased some high-level equipment for us, with me bulldogging them pretty hard, I guess, that we need it. And that's where I think the cost of the county comes in. The bigger cost is the helicopters. Unless we get a Army Guard helicopter to come in, we had a fisherman in the Box Elder Canyon just south of Glen Rock last year who went way down in there and fell off a cliff and broke his arm, shattered his elbow, and did some other things. And that was an incredible rescue to get him out of there. Just getting the people to be able to be our team and some of our deputies as well down in there, some of the fire department from Glen Rock. And then we had great help from our Army Guard. Believe me, if you say Air Guard and it's the Army Guard, you're in big trouble. Because I did that in the newspaper. It's kind of all fun. They made sure I knew it was the Army Guard. But they had to hoist him out with a hoist. And then what happened is when the team was coming out, one of the firemen got heat stroke, a severe heat stroke. So the Army Guard came back up and hoisted him out with a big hoist rope because they couldn't land down in there. It's so rugged. So these search and rescues happen all year round. Of course, depending on the weather, in the wintertime, of course, that's probably going to be a little bit, they're going to have more dangerous searches because of the weather conditions and where they get stuck. In the mountains, we have Laramie Peak.
Sheriff, I appreciate the.
Okay.
We just need to get moving on because we're getting ready to head back into session here, so I do appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
Committee, is there any further questions for any of the gentlemen at the table? Seeing none, thank you guys so much. Appreciate your time on this.
Thank you very much.
We don't have anybody online, do we?
We do have one.
We do have one person online? Okay, go ahead and let them in. Thank you, Sheriff. You're gonna have to start making your sleeves longer to keep those lines on your sleeve getting up there. You're running out of sleeve space. Rich, thank you very much for joining us. I hate to be that chairman that does this, but if you can keep your comments pithy, it would be certainly appreciated, sir.
You got it, Chairman. Good afternoon, Chairman and committee. My name is Rich Como. I am part of the Governor Search and Rescue Council. I'm a appointed member seated as the peace officer for the state for this section. Pretty much those three at the table earlier said everything that I had to say. I just want to touch on a couple different things real quick. One, in Wyoming, we are very fortunate to really have about 4 or 5 different regions, whether it's the mountains, the prairies, the plains, the waters, which require all types of different skill sets for search and rescue volunteers to complete their missions in the tactical senses and their skill sets as well. All those require different fundings. You talk to the individuals in the northwest part of our state, their search and rescue operations consist of a lot of helicopter, high technology throughout the year, whether it's snow on the ground or it's in the middle of the summertime. The technology that they're using to accomplish their missions in such a short duration, which also helps save lives in that matter, costs a lot of money to operate per hour. Just roughly a helicopter rescue is right around the $3,000 mark an hour for the operation of a helicopter. One other thing I want to touch on is the interstate through I-80, as we all know it. We get that wonderful W word. I won't say it too loud because hopefully it's not happening there in Cheyenne today. But with mixture with snow, that interstate shuts down quite a bit. Google is a wonderful thing in the summertime when the roads are clean, clear, and dry. But in the wintertime, it turns into a, when the interstate shuts down, Google definitely does not help us in any realm of search and rescue, of leading these individuals, both from residents and non-residents, mostly non-residents, to the wonderful 2-track of BLM roads out in the middle of nowhere, which then again, during the snowstorms, the blizzards, these volunteers are risking their lives to go get these individuals. Again, I am in support of this. The 3 gentlemen at the table pretty much summed up everything that I was going to mention. I leave that to stand for questions.
Committee, any questions for Rich? Seeing none, thank you very much, Rich. Appreciate you being here today.
Thank you.
Close public comment so we can get this going here. Committee, moved by Tarver, seconded by Nicholas. Committee, any discussion on the bill and or amendments? I actually will make an amendment if nobody else is going to. So the only reason I'm going to make this is to keep it in line with the other plate that is out there that receives these types of donations. And I'm also thinking that if people are going to do this, I think they'll be willing to pay it. See what the committee thinks. So right now on page 2, lines 10, the applicant fee would go from 100 to 150. The renewal fee would go on line 14 from 25 to 50. And then on line 17, the conforming amendment would be 150 there. And I'll move that. Seconded by Representative Larson. So committee, the only reason I went back and looked up House Bill 39 from 2018, that was the wildlife conservation plate. Those are the exact same prices for the wildlife conservation plate. I'm just trying to keep things steady. And that would also provide a heftier amount of money on a yearly basis to the search and rescue fund. So any questions? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. That motion passes. Anything further, committee? Question on the bill? Donna, please give us a roll call on House Bill 226 as amended.
Okay, roll call vote. House Bill 226 as amended. Representative Banks.
Aye.
Representative Geringer.
Aye.
Representative Larson.
Aye.
Representative McCann. Representative Nicholas.
Aye.
Representative Posey.
Aye.
Representative Tarver.
Aye.
Representative Wiley.
Aye.
Chairman Brown.
Aye.
We have 9 ayes, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Donna. We will, I'll have you carry this out on the floor. There is no appropriation, so I will not re-refer this. So you'll be taking care of this, but I'll make sure we get you introduced. Committee, before I send you out anywhere else, before I let Representative Nicholas have the floor here, I do want to make sure that you guys take a look. We have interim committee meetings already pre-scheduled. LSO was lucky enough to give us some information, so please write these dates down and take a look to make sure that these will work for you. We have April 30th and May 1st as our first meeting. April 30th and May 1st. Then we have August 11th and 12th. And then October 20th and 21st. So April 30, May 1, August 11, 12, October 20, 21. Okay, if you guys can take a look at that, and please let me know if you guys cannot make those. Otherwise, those have been penciled in, and those are on the calendar as is unless we lose too many people. Representative Nicholas, would you like to share your show and tell story?
I just wanted to let the committee know, and anyone that's paying attention, that the director of A&I said that she'd have the Pioneer lot, which is a Safeway lot, open in an hour. And they'll cover up the signs and they'll post it, so.
Appreciate you doing that. Thank you very much.
I was just curious.
That's the one on the west side, or the other side of the parking building.
It's basically 2 blocks away.
Okay.
Yep, just a short walk away. So, committee, with that, that's it. We're adjourned. Thank you.